Hello, my friends. It's been quite a while since we've talked, hasn't it? That. Clearly my brain doesn't work anymore, so there's that. I have so much to tell you about, including 1,006 finished objects, 1,006 works in progress, a bunch of design updates. It has been months since I posted an episode last. Couple of reasons for that. My grandfather passed away, so that was fun. I'm doing okay. This happened probably about a month and a half ago. He lived a long, good life. He had dementia. He ended up being put in hospice. It was a very peaceful passing. It was like all that stuff was really like as good as we could have gotten, so I'm very happy about that. But it's been an emotional couple of months is basically what I'm trying to say. So I've been funneling a lot of that energy into knitting, so I have a lot to show you, and I've also got some spinning updates because I've been doing more spinning lately. So let's just get started. I'm gonna start with finished objects because I have a couple. Who am I? I don't even know. And then we'll go from there and just kind of see what happens. I'll start with what I'm wearing. This is my wonky neckband that went through the washer and stretched out funny. This is my Tolsta tee that I threw together in a couple days. This is knit in two different yarns. This lighter purple is some leftover that I had. I knit the Clamber Cardi by Nordlund not last year, the year before that. Ended up giving it to my partner's little sister because it didn't fit me. But essentially what that meant was that I had like 3 skeins of that yarn left over, because what ended up happening was I was leaving 2 rows out of every single cable repeat that I did. So the garment ended up being way shorter than I meant for it to be. And I was not re-knitting that thing. That is a ton of cables and lace, and it just wasn't happening, and the cotton was driving me crazy. So I gave it to Sienna, my partner's little sister, and I kept the yarn, and I said, you know what, I'll probably just make something with it in the future, and I did. So I didn't have enough for a full tee on its own, so I bought a couple skeins of this Cascade Ultra Pima. The Cloudborne Fibers line is completely discontinued. I want to say that was Craftsy's yarn line or some other craft conglomerate, but it's no longer made. I got it on like a steep clearance, which is why I had so much of it to begin with, so I had to buy some more. So we have a striped t-shirt, but I really like these colors together. It's kind of like a cool purple. This is a much warmer dark purple than it looks on camera. It's a little bit more saturated. Maybe you can see a little bit better if I get close. No, the lighting's not the best. It's a little bit dim, but that's okay. Yeah, I love this tee. It's just a nice, simple t-shirt to wear around the house, which is exactly what I wanted it to be. So I'm pretty pleased with that. And I don't know, I might make another one. It's maybe a little bit loose of a gauge for me. Makes me feel a little bit naked, but that's just me. I mean, I know you really can't see through from a distance. If I get really close, you can see the outline of the sports bra I'm wearing, but like other than that, it's not a huge deal. I think it might depend on the color too. This is also cotton yarn, so it could very well be that the cotton yarn just didn't bloom the way that wool would, which is probably what I'm thinking. But it's a pretty loose gauge, which is why it works up so quickly. So good pattern. I have not yet decided if it's for me yet, but I do like it. I do like this t-shirt. I've been wearing it a lot. This yarn does pill a ton, so just putting that out there. But I like the t-shirt. It's just a plain raglan. It's not a compound raglan or anything. There is a little bit of bulk in the underarm, but like given what it is, I don't really need it to be anything super fancy. I just kind of wanted to use up the cotton yarn I had in my stash. So there you go. But it's a pretty, I mean, it's like a normal length tee. It's pretty oversized, which is exactly what I wanted. So I did get lucky because I gauge swatched with the wrong size needles and decided not to re-swatch, so I took a little bit of a risk, but it paid off, and here we go. So I'm happy with that. I have how many other finished objects actually? 1, 2, 3. I have 3 other finished objects to show, which is obscene. That is a huge number for me because I've had so many languishing works in progress for so long. So the first one I want to show off are the socks that have been on my needles for months. I usually have a pair of socks going. I'm not going to say I do all the time, but I usually do have a pair of socks on my needles to just bring with me to concerts, or if I'm going out with family and I need something to do, if I'm going to be waiting on something. So these were my most recent pair. These are my pattern. This is the classic simple socks, and I have worn these, so they're looking a little stretched out and a little dirty on the bottoms. That's not the yarn, it's just dirty socks, I think. And I don't know, it's just such an easy pattern to knit that I just kind of always go back to that setup for my socks. I could experiment with new constructions, but it's just not, that's not why I'm knitting socks. I'm knitting socks to keep my mind and my hands busy. So the same formula every time is fine with me. So these are the classic simple socks, which is just a cuff down vanilla sock pattern. It's very straightforward, and it has a German short row heel. So a little bit more flexible when you're using like a contrast color for the heel. I hate when you're doing like a heel flap and gusset or Flegel heel or something, like a heel construction that typically you might not knit a contrasting heel in, because like I'll use a Flegel heel for example. That creates basically a triangle kind of at the back of the heel. And if you're knitting the Flegel heel in that contrast color, you're not going to have this nice little wedge like a classic sock would have. You're just going to have a weird upside down triangle at the back of your heel. So, I mean, I like a Flegel heel. I have used it before, but I probably wouldn't use it on a sock with a contrasting heel. So I tend to reserve that for things like hand spun socks, because I like to knit my hand spun in a ribbed sock, so that it kind of preserves some of the stretch depending on the kind of wool I used. So when I'm using commercial yarn, I'll go a little bit more straightforward, a little more vanilla. And the German short row heel works pretty well for me. You do have to tug pretty hard on those stitches to get them to not gap or not create any holes, but once you get the hang of it and you do it a couple times, it makes sense. So what you can actually do if you're not used to that technique and you want to practice, you can just knit the heel. You can just cast on and knit like an inch of stockinette, work the heel, and then do the same cast off, block it, see how it turned out. And the more you practice, the more you'll get the hang of that. So new pair of socks, very excited about that. I don't have that many hand knit pairs of socks, I'm not gonna lie, because I'm a very, very slow sock knitter. So I maybe turn out like 2 or 3 pairs a year. And some of them go to my partner because my partner loves my socks. So I'm glad I get a pair for myself for once in my life. Yeah, those socks have been on my needles since I started this podcast, since before I started this podcast. So I'm very happy they're done. I took them to the Hosier concert with me and I knocked it out, and that was that. Turns out I just needed to take it somewhere and wait in line with it and work on it. So that's my only accessory as a finished object. The rest are garments. So this is one. I have 2 more, and then I've got a work in progress that is nearly a finished object that I'll show you because I can try that on. So we're gonna do that. The first one is long awaited. I started this one very early on too. This is my Vargö pullover for Alex that is finally done, and you'll notice it has short sleeves. Turns out Alex had this vision for a short-sleeved sweater the entire time and just never verbalized it. They thought that they had mentioned it to me, but they didn't. So I had them try it on before I cast on for the sleeves and picked up my stitches, and I went, well, how long do you want your sleeves? Do you want it to fall like at your wrist bone or a little bit more relaxed down your hand? And they go, oh, I didn't tell you I want short sleeves. So I went from having to knit 2 long sleeves to just having to do like 2 more inches of knitting on each sleeve. So I finished it pretty quick. I'm very pleased with this. It doesn't fit me as well as it fits Alex, but I will try it on just to show you. And I do have a sports bra on, so I'm not that worried about changing on camera. Once I get top surgery, it's over for you all. This is a matching set. So I knit my dog Obi, which is my partner's dog, a version of this for dogs about a year or two ago. And there's always been a human version. It was kind of always my intention to knit Alex a matching one, but I hadn't really gotten around to it. And it's finally done. I've had this thing on the needles for months. I went through a phase after I split for the sleeves of like, oh my god, this gauge is really hard on my hands. It is knit a pretty tight gauge. It's knit on size 4 needles with like a worsted or Aran weight yarn, which is pretty significant. And the tightness of my knitting was just putting a lot of strain on my hands, and I didn't like it. So I took a break, and turns out that's what I needed. I was able to just bang it out. Again, a pretty relaxed length. I have a longer torso than Alex does, so it looks more relaxed on them. And you'll also notice in the armpit, there's a little gapping for me. That's filled out on Alex because their full bust is larger than mine. So I'm very pleased with this. I can't wait for them to wear it for the first time and take pictures with Obi in his sweater, but it is too warm for sweaters right now. It is summer, so we are not in sweater season anymore. So I might have to wait for that photo, but I'm very happy this is done. I have one planned for myself in different colors that matches Millie's sweater. I don't know if I want to knit it again. I just don't know. It's a wonderful pattern. It just is such a tough gauge for me, I think. I'm flirting with the idea of sizing down and going up a needle size for a looser fabric. Maybe that'll help me like it more. So I don't know. I haven't decided yet. If I do cast on my version, it's not going to be for quite some time. So I'm kind of indifferent, but I do really like this sweater. And I do want the sweater. So that might be enough motivation to get me to cast it on. So I guess we'll see. Yeah, that's my Vargö sweater by Sari Nordlund. The yarn is acrylic, which is not something I normally knit with. You may be saying, Catherine, oh my goodness, you usually knit with wool or cotton or some natural fiber. What gives? I do not knit for my dogs in natural fibers. They get dirty. I need to be able to throw it in the washing machine, and I did not want to spend 1,006 years trying to color match wool yarn to match the acrylic that I bought my dog. So I'm just knitting acrylic sweaters. There's nothing wrong with acrylic yarn. It is a phenomenal fiber. It is really supremely washable. It's very easy to take care of. It is so beyond color fast in most cases. So you can create some really beautiful pieces of art with acrylic yarn, and this is a great example of that. I did somewhat like this yarn. It's a lot splittier than I had hoped it was. My needle split it with almost every stitch, and that was pretty frustrating. So if you don't like splitty yarn, I would not recommend knitting with this, but I do like how the fabric feels. It almost kind of feels like if you blended cotton, wool, and silk, but it still has a little bit of that squeaky acrylic feeling. I don't love that feeling. That's why I don't usually knit for myself in acrylic. I prefer natural fibers because I just like the handle of it's not that I like the handle of natural fibers better, because there's so many different ones it's hard to compare, but I dislike the handle of acrylic. It's squeaky. It feels like on my fingers, and I can't tolerate that. I'm autistic. I'm very, very sensory sensitive. I can't do it. So if I knit for you in acrylic, I really love you. And that includes my dogs. I am also going to be knitting my late grandmother's yarn stash for my family to create some heirlooms, and that is all acrylic too. So I'm I'm glad I have the opportunity to do it. I don't know that I'm super looking forward to knitting with so much acrylic yarn. I have been taking it in short spurts, and that seems to be helping. So I don't know. Yeah, that's another reason why I'm not sure I'm super married to casting this on in the near future. I may sit on it for a little bit, and if I decide I just don't care, I'll just give the yarn away. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. It's my Vargö sweater. I'll post a picture of Alex and Obi in their matching sweaters once I take one, because I know y'all are gonna want that. One other finished object is actually my design, so I want to talk about that for a minute, because that is an upcoming one that is going to be pretty relevant at some point. I don't know when, I have no timeline whatsoever, but this is the Intrepid Tank, which this is the first draft of it. This is not what the final product is going to look like. I thought it was, and then I ended up wanting to make some aesthetic changes, and some grading changes, so I'll talk about those a little bit. But this is the tank. It's a pretty roomy, very positive ease heavy muscle tank. And the reason I wanted to design this was to commemorate my top surgery, which is upcoming. So for those who don't know, I am non-binary. It's more specifically agender. And I experience more dysphoria than anything around my bust. So I am getting top surgery at some point in the coming year. Still haven't been scheduled, which is starting to stress me out, despite several reminders. But I guess we're gonna find out. I'm gonna have to call my surgeon's office. But regardless, I wanted to design myself a little like top surgery reward garment. So I said, you know what, it'd be really cool to be able to wear a muscle tank, because I've never been able to do that. I've never had the guts to do it. I mean, I can wear it with just a sports bra and it looks fine. Like that's, I wouldn't necessarily call that out of the ordinary. But it's just something I have not had the guts to do until very recently. So it's a little bit of a ballsy design for me. A couple of the things that I'm changing in the future sample. So again, this is my first draft. The probably biggest thing is that the actual samples for the pattern are not going to be knit in wool yarn. This is Malabrigo sock yarn. It's 100% merino wool, which, by the way, I really don't recommend using for socks. It's not going to hold up at all. So this is a very soft yarn. It blooms pretty beautifully, but I'm knitting my first sample in silk. So I think the thing that I kind of latched onto when I was finishing this garment and figuring out what I actually wanted for the pattern itself is that I want it to be drapey kind of above all else. So silk kind of seemed like a good option to me. So this is the official sample. This is knit in Ito yarn, Kinu, which is 100% silk noil, which is gathered from silkworm cocoons after they emerge as moths. So it's pretty cruelty-free, which is really good. So you'll notice on this first draft, I'm calling it, there's just a reverse stockinette panel along the armhole, and it meets up with that I-cord. So something I noticed when I was blocking this is that if you don't pin it pretty aggressively, it can curl and it looks really bad. So I wanted that to lay flat no matter if you pinned it or not. So this lace pattern is what's replacing it. Let's see if that helps. It's just like a plain mesh. Very, very simple. So that's what's gonna replace it. And that's also a little extra peek of skin, because again, I'm getting a little daring with my design work. I don't know how well you can see that at all. No? Can you tell? That's tough. I don't also have that much fabric yet, so we're working on this. This I've kind of tabled for now to work on it later when I have fewer priority projects to work on, but I'm very excited about this. This is gonna be a slightly deeper armhole. It's gonna probably go down to about here. And then I'm gonna knit another sample. This is one of the other things I'm changing that ends about here. So that other sample is gonna be knit in Liru, cottons, bamboo, and linen base. So we've got some silk, we've got some plant fibers. It's gonna be good. I'm excited. I have not swatched that one yet. This is kind of, again, because this is kind of a passion project, I'm not really on deadline for this, so I want it to be as nice as possible, and if it takes forever, it takes forever. I don't care when I publish it. And it's coming along pretty well. The other things that I'm changing that you can't see in that sample yet, so that's one of my works in progress. I'm not going to talk about that again later. This side panel. So this is knit in half fisherman's rib, which I really don't like. I don't like the way that it's pulling together. I don't like the way that it's kind of gathering in the underarm. I don't like the way that it transitions to the hem. So instead, I'm replacing that with another stitch pattern that is textured but slightly different visually. And then I'm just going to do plain 1x1 ribbing for the hem, because I just continued that half fisherman's rib. I love half fisherman's rib, but I don't think it's right for this garment. So that's the plan. The final thing that I'm doing is changing this neckline grading. It's too deep. I want it to be a little bit more of a classic crew. So it's gonna not be so deep. That aside, I think that's pretty much it for this one. This is gonna be one you might not hear about for a while, but I am working on it. I'm very excited about it. Once I finish my first sample, you'll see it, and we'll go from there. That's the plan. Those are my finished objects for now. I am working on a lot of projects right now. A lot. Probably too many. And there's a lot of projects I'm working on that have not been cast on yet. So I'm working on a collection behind the scenes, which I won't tell you anything about yet because I am not allowed to. But the other part of all of this is that I'm also working on my fall-winter design. So because I'm a relatively new designer, there's a little bit of like prep work you have to do to start really putting out patterns in the rhythm that most designers do. So you kind of have to write a bunch of patterns and build them up for a while until you have enough to publish at a regular pace. So that's kind of what I've been doing for probably the past 3 years. So this is my fall-winter sweater, and it's about 3/4 done. This is called the Snicklefritz Pullover. I'm gonna put it on because I just finished one of the sleeves, and the sleeve is not blocked yet, so it looks too short, but bear with me. And so everything but the last couple inches of the hem from like yellow stripe down and the sleeve. Everything but those two things are blocked. So this is a compound raglan. It's supposed to be a pretty relaxed fit. I'm recommending about 2 to 5 inches of ease. This is 4 to 5 to me, depending on the day. This sleeve is gonna block out a lot. This is knit and superwash, so I've got a lot of wiggle room here, thankfully. But this is my first sweater pattern, and it's the first sweater that I have knit that is 100% my design. So I've like modified other people's sweaters, I've done sweater surgery and things like that, but I've never knit 100% my own pattern, and this is so good. I'm so happy. It's the perfect weight. The perfect color work motif. It's the perfect color layout. I'm obsessed with it. I've been posting about this pretty incessantly on Instagram, so if you follow me over there, you have definitely seen this before. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about this because this is, for me, kind of a magnum opus moment. So one of the big things that I try to embrace in my design work is designing so that trans people can knit this pattern not only alongside everybody else, but as the primary audience for this pattern. So anyone can knit it. That's by all means, like, do with that what you will. However, I wanted trans people to see this pattern and say, this was made for me. This was written for me. Again, it could fit anybody if you finagle it in the way that you like. However you want to do that is fine by me. But I wanted to be able to capture those people and to give them the luxury of not having to modify every goddamn garment they knit. So really the only thing here that is going to be changing your silhouette is your color placement, which is kind of the thing that I've been talking about for a while. So this is knit in Baby Cat Yarns DK, and that's a big part of my inspiration for this garment. The main color is this dark purple. It's called Stoned Immaculate. And then the rest of it, the stripes, the contrast colors, are a mini set from the Fresh palette. This is just the whole palette. It's 10 colors. So I start with the yellow, go all the way down to this electric green, and then I have 2 more stripes down here. So you could do it with 12 colors, just the same. Same with essentially any other number. I'm pretty thrilled with the way that the color layout went. So basically the way that this is working is I wanted people to be able to determine exactly what parts of their body they want to accentuate with this pattern. So for me, that means taking attention away from my full bust, because that's the thing that I'm the most insecure about. And I'm adding these more high contrast colors. So if you know anything about color theory, yellow and purple are contrasting colors. They stand out when put next to each other. So I started with yellow and all of these warmer tones, and then ended with the same warmer tones that are the highest contrast with the main color at the shoulder and the hem. And I put all of the lower contrast colors around my full bust so that your eye is drawn from your shoulder directly down to the hem and it doesn't linger. So I'm not wearing a binder, and if you look at me head on, honestly in the right lighting you can't even really tell that I have boobs, which is awesome. That was the goal. The other way around also works. So if you wanted to draw attention to your bust line, if you've got a nice rack, if you want to show your boobage off, if you're trans and you want to accentuate different body proportions than you have, you can put those higher contrast colors right at your full bust line and the lower contrast colors on the top and bottom. It's the exact same theory but flipped. So I think that's a really cool thing. You could also knit all of the stripes in one color and just keep it consistent. That's another thing you could do. I'm very excited about this. Very, very excited about this. I am almost done with this sample. I just have to knit my other sleeve and block it. And then I'll post a picture once that's done because I can't resist. I know you're not technically supposed to post pictures of designs before they're released. I don't like that. I like to be able to talk about it. So if I am not sworn to secrecy, then I'll talk about it. Once I finish this, it's gonna be a mixture of attention to some other projects and also working on Snicklefritz Light. So I'm doing a fingering weight version of this sweater too. And that is going to be in partnership with Heather from Heather Handmaids, who is a yarn dyer who's lovely and has put together a Care Bears themed advent for this year that actually goes live today. So if you were able to snatch that up, you'll be able to knit the Snicklefritz Light when it comes out in December. You can also purchase the pattern now alongside your advent and receive it on publication day once it's ready. I'm really excited about it. I think it's a really cool partnership. I don't often see a lot of sweater patterns that are advent friendly. So this is going to have 21 stripes, so you can knit honestly as many stripes as you want, but you can use your whole advent if you really, really want to, and if you play with your space correctly. I'm so excited to see how it turns out. I have not received the yarn yet. I don't know what it looks like. I have no spoilers to give you, but I will show you my swatch, which unfortunately is on my desk. So this is the Snicklefritz DK swatch. This is Snicklefritz Light. It's pretty similar. It's just a smaller gauge. So I'm very excited to knit that because this has just been such a fun project, and it's one of those things that I like to call potato chip knitting, where you just want one more stripe, just one more row, just let me keep going, just one more. And oh boy, is that the case with this pattern. I'm just so excited to see what people do with it. I've been gushing with Britt from Baby Cat Yarns in DMs about this just because neither of us can stop talking about it. It's genuinely just one of those garments and one of those projects that's like a creative fountain for me. I do still have some stipulations about the fit, honestly. It's a very basic compound raglan, but it is designed to be a relaxed fit. So that means that your armhole is gonna have a little bit of gapping if you go for the higher end of the ease spectrum. So I went a little bit more toward the 4 or 5 inches of positive ease. If you went more toward the 3 inches, this would be a little bit less bulky and you would get a little bit closer into your armhole, probably around there. So if you knit it to about 2 inches of positive ease, that's probably about what you would get. So that's my recommendation. This is not going to be coming out for a little bit. It still has to be tech edited, but once that is done, I'm going to be putting together a test call. So if you want to be notified when the test call for this is ready, I really recommend you join my test knitters. I have a I have 2 newsletters. I have a Test Knitters Only newsletter, and that's only test calls, including the secret ones. The secret ones don't go out to everybody. That only goes out to that newsletter. So if you want to get the secret ones too, sign up for that. The other way to find out is to both follow me on Instagram and sign up for my regular mailing list, which you'll get a notification about this because it's not a secret pattern. If I have a pattern coming up that's not a secret and I have a test call, I will publish it publicly for anyone. If I have a secret pattern, I will not do that. So the only way to get those secret test calls, which there will be some of coming up in the next 1.5 years, because I'm working on this big collection, so hint, hint, wink, wink. If you like my vibe, you will like the collection. Just put it there. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say about that. This is a project I'm very excited about, and I have a lot more to say, but I will save it for once the sample is done and once tech editing is moving. Wonderful. I'm gonna change out of this because it's hot, and I'm gonna put my t-shirt back on, but those are all my finished objects, and one work in progress that is almost a finished object. I cannot believe that took half an hour. I don't ever have this many finished objects, so I'm gonna do a quick magical mystery tour of some works in progress, some spinning progress, and another phone update. This will just be a chatty one, I think, which I kind of like the chatty ones anyway, so I'm here for it. I showed you my second Intrepid Tank, so I'm not gonna belabor that point. I have a couple other works in progress that are chugging along. The first one that is kind of the longest standing is this cowl. So I cast this on out of boredom with my Vargö sweater a couple of months ago. I'm about halfway done. I've got 4 repeats done. This is the Tessellate cowl by Jamie Lomax from Pacific Knit Co. And this is my hand spun. So it's Targi from Emily C. Gillies. This is one of the first yarns I ever spun, ever. And let me see if I can get the ball out. It is the colorway Carpe Diem, I believe it's called. It's got some pretty muted purples, some muted blues. It's mostly blue and a tiny bit of orange. It's kind of hard to see. It's a little bit washed out. Let's see if that works. No, not really. That's close enough, I guess. And then the main color is another fave yarn of all time, which is Brooklyn Tweed Arbor. This is also Targi. I love Targi. It's one of my favorite wool breeds. It's so springy and bouncy and just light and airy. It's a little toothy, but it's not itchy, which I enjoy. This is the colorway Black Fig. It's just like a dark, cool brown. I would call it like a grizzly bear brown, maybe a little cooler than that. And that has been moving. It's getting there. I have another 4 repeats to go. So once I've finished that, I'm gonna see if it's long enough, and then I'm gonna graft that baby together. I've got a really shoddy provisional cast on that I'm not sure will actually work. So if it works, I'm gonna be very excited, but that's kind of just to keep him busy project for when I get bored of what I'm working on. The other work in progress that I have 2 others. This one is kind of related to what I was talking about earlier about acrylic yarn. This is one of the projects I'm knitting from my grandmother's stash. This is a blanket for my dad. I think the pattern is the Corrie blanket. I want to say Barocco published it. I'm not sure. I think it's a free pattern. Don't quote me on that. But it's just garter stitch with some slip stitch columns. It's very straightforward to figure out. I don't remember what yarn this is at all, but it's probably not made anymore. Premier Yarns Puzzle. So I've got 2 colors. I have this one, this like red and blue and gray, which is very much like a dad colorway for me. And then I also have just this plain gray variegated one. So I'm just gonna see how it comes out, and then I'm gonna make my uncle one just with the colors reversed so that the slip stitch columns are done in the gray and not the blue and red. So this is, again, it's just a like TV knitting project because it's just garter stitch. The yarn is fine. It's not my favorite. So I have only a couple of rows so far because it's A, it's a blanket, and B, it's yarn I don't love. So that might be a long-term one, but we'll see how it goes. My last work in progress to share with you all is a very special one. So this is where I get to talk about a project that I started about a week ago. If you follow me on Instagram, you know that I am extremely vocal in support of Palestine. If that's not what you agree with, you don't need to be here. That's fine. But I'm not gonna stop talking about it. So if you're cool with that, feel free to stay. If not, find another creator. That's all I gotta say about that. So I decided, because I had just about enough of watching Palestinian kids get blown up and seeing the fiber arts community not find the rhythm to band together. I've witnessed a couple of mutual aid attempts, but none of them have really stuck, and most of them have been through just like a single creator, which is wonderful, but that's not mutual aid, that's a fundraiser. And I wanted to do some mutual aid. So I started an Instagram account called Stitches For Palestine, and we're doing a make-along. So I'm running a make-along now. And the way that it works is brands are able to pledge a portion of their profits for either the entirety of the campaign, which runs up until July. I think the make-along ends on July 15th, and then we're ending the campaign on the 20th, so that if folks still want to make purchases after the 15th, they can. So the way that this is working is that if you either use materials from one of the brands that is pledged, it doesn't have to be a new purchase. If you make a new purchase from one of the brands that is pledged, if you donate directly to the family that we're benefiting that week, or if you share one of our posts and submit proof that you shared that post to our Google form that we use as a check-in every week, you'll be entered to win some prizes. It's pretty cool. There's weekly prizes, and then there's also a grand prize package. So all of that information, if you go to @Stitches For Palestine on Instagram, all of that is in the link in the bio. There's also a link to the GoFundMe for the family that we're benefiting this week. But this is my project for the Stitches For Palestine make-along. So I ended up going to my local yarn store, which is CC's Wool in Guilderland, New York. I actually have a couple, but that's the one that I typically find myself at the most because I like their selection the best. And I picked up some yarn and I cast on this project. I ended up finding a sample of this shawl in the shop, and I never would have known about it otherwise. This is an older, I don't know how old it is, but it's not a new release, from Melanie Berg, and it's called the Nordlund shawl, which is apparently, I looked it up because I had no idea how to pronounce it. Apparently it's an island in the North Sea that belongs to Germany, quote unquote. Again, grain of salt. I don't know anything about it. So this is just a pretty simple, like, sort of triangle, sort of crescent-y shawl. It's just really fun. It's got this cool little slip stitchy kind of texture, and then it's got these big bubbles. I am using 2 yarns for this. I believe it calls for 3 contrast colors, but I wanted to use just this one. So this is Fibra Natura Cobblestone, and the colorway is called Macaw. M-A-C-A-W, like the bird. And then I also have this beautiful alpaca that is local, that CC sells under their brand label. And this is just like a natural light gray. And they're both, I would call, probably like a sport to a light DK. So it's just a lovely pattern. It's been really grounding, and it's nice to have something smaller to work on where I can like do some intentional knitting every day and say, like, each stitch of this project is for a life lost. And that feels really important for me, to ground this project in like remembering why I'm doing this and remembering why the fiber arts community has the power that we have to help these people. So it's, again, like, I'm not trying to be the next UNICEF. I'm not trying to be like sending people in person to fucking Gaza to be sending aid. Like, I'm one person, and mutual aid is one thing, but that is a very different thing. I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to do sustainable mutual aid built by a community that can carry itself forward. And that has proved to be true. I'm hoping for a little bit more momentum, however, because our audience is still, while we've gotten a lot of momentum in the first couple of days, it has slowed a little bit. That's partially because I haven't been super active. I've been dealing with some other stuff in life, and partially because, again, I'm only one person. So the more we can get the word out, the more people join the make-along, the more we'll be able to make an impact for these families. So if you want to join us, just hashtag Stitches for Palestine, MAL. Any craft in the fiber arts sphere is welcome. So knitting, crochet, weaving, spinning, felting, there's so many, sewing. If it has to do with fiber and or textiles, basically, it's in. Carpet tufting, like any of those fiber arts categories. If you can jerry-rig it into a category, essentially it counts. And if you check in with our Google form, you're eligible for weekly prizes and for the grand prize package. So I recommend doing that because there's a lot of good stuff on there, I'm not gonna lie. That's Stitches for Palestine. I'm very proud of it, and I'm a little bit anxious about it, I'm not gonna lie. It is a very nerve-wracking thing to put yourself on the line when income is at stake. I'm very lucky in that I don't rely on this to pay my bills. So I have a full-time job, I'm employed, my partner is employed. We don't have a fancy life, but we do have a life, and we can feed ourselves, and we have a roof over our heads. So I want to use this space while I'm still able to do that to make some impact and to make some money for people who need it, because I think that's really important. The family that we're benefiting this week could use a good boost, so they've been hovering in the low 20,000s for the past week. There was a big rush when we first posted, and then it slowed a little bit. So if we can get a nice final push into the weekend, that would be super helpful, because we change families on Sundays. So I'm trying to bridge the gap between spreading the love and targeted, coordinated efforts, because mutual aid is most effective when we place a targeted, coordinated effort. So for example, if we all collectively donate $5,000, that $5,000 is going to go a lot further going to one family or 5 families than it will to 500 families. It could get one family out, it could get one person out, it could tip it over the edge, but it's not gonna make a huge difference if you're splitting that between a bunch of different funds. So that is the number one thing we're focusing on right now, because Palestinians are directly telling us they just are trying to get out. And all of this information I'm pulling from is coming from Operation Olive Branch, which is an organization that is coordinating an immense amount of mutual aid at a much, much higher rate than I can. And then we can as a small fiber arts community. This is a much more general movement. So if you want to support in that way, that link is also in that the link in the bio of the Stitches for Palestine account. But I'm trying to make this feel like ours, you know? Like, I don't want this to be my initiative, I want this to be our initiative. I don't want to be the only one behind the wheel here. If you have something that you want to volunteer your time to do or to manage that I just don't have the bandwidth to do, pretty much everything that's up right now is what I have the bandwidth to do. And even that is me sacrificing a lot of time that I could be spending elsewhere. So if you have something that you want to bring to that cause, please, please, please send me a DM, comment, do something. I would love to have you on board. So I think that's it about that for now. That is a really important one for me, and that's what I'm gonna be continually talking about for the next couple of weeks. I hope we don't need it for the next couple of weeks, but even if we do see a ceasefire pass in the next few weeks, there are still going to be people who need that relief. So we're going to continue our efforts regardless what happens, because the recovery effort in Gaza is going to be monumental, and it's going to be emotionally traumatizing to a lot of kids who have been orphaned, and to everybody in general living in that area, but especially I think it's I want to say the figure is now 17,000 kids have been orphaned by Israel. So yeah, that's what we're doing. That's Stitches for Palestine. I think I'll end there for works in progress. I do have a little bit of spinning to share with you. So spinning is kind of the one craft that I do not have monetized in the fiber arts realm. I spin for me, or I knit and I design for myself and also for others. I spin chiefly for myself. So I took out my blending board because I broke my foot while I was gone, and I couldn't use my wheel. So now it's pretty much healed, but for 6 weeks I could not spin. So I found this like hybrid drop spindle support spindle on Etsy, which, by the way, it is impossible to get support spindles right now. I chalk that up to the popularity that they're receiving lately. They're getting a lot of love, which is great, but it's also hard to find them. So this is nice. It's got this little bowl, and it's also, it feels enough like a drop spindle, which is what I'm used to, that I can still do it seated, but it feels natural. So this is a very slow process. I do need to take this off of the spindle because it's starting to get too heavy. It actually got too heavy a little while ago, but I live on the edge. And by that I mean I spin too much fiber onto my spindle. Yeah, I have not gotten the hang of this thing yet. I swore at it a couple of times and now it's in timeout, but I do like the fiber. I made the rolags myself. That's what they look like. They are nice and fluffy. This is some natural gray Corriedale with a little bit of baby alpaca and a couple of different like neon silks. So there's some chartreuse, some hot pink, and some teal. And just a little bit of periwinkle in there too. So I don't know, I just wanted something fun to like throw on a spindle and mess around with because I couldn't sit at my wheel and I needed to spin something. So that was supposed to be for practice. Weeks later I still have not touched it, but maybe I'll pick that back up soon. And the other spin I've been working on, I got out my e-spinner because the spindle was driving me nuts. And I just needed to change my circuit board. So I have an electric eel 6.0, and it came with a faulty circuit board, and Maurice, who runs Dreaming Robots, which is the company that sells electric eel wheels, sent me very graciously for free a new circuit board and said if the motor continues to have this problem, just replace the circuit board and that should solve it. So as far as I can tell, it has. I have yet to ply something. That seems to be when the problem comes out the most. Basically what was happening is my motor was getting fatigued really, really fast, and that should not be happening. I was like spinning one skein of yarn and it was exhausting itself in one skein. And I would get to the end of my ply and it would be like, I'm not even kidding, spinning this fast at the top speed. So I replaced my circuit board finally. I just sat down and showed myself how to do it with some of his tutorials, and I started spinning some BFL. This is from an Etsy shop. What is the name? I just forgot it. Your Fibery Godmother. That's what it's called. And this is BFL in the colorway Snowdrops. This is a little bit brighter than it actually is, but I like how it's turning out. I think BFL is slowly becoming one of my favorite fibers to spin, but I have yet to ply this. It's going to be a 3-ply. I'll probably just use it for socks, but I just needed some fiber to throw on my e-spinner to make sure it was still working. So, so far so good. I'm almost done with my second ply, and then I have another one to spin, and then I can ply it and see if the motor fatigue is still a problem. If it is, I'm going to be kind of mad, but whatever. I still have my manual, and now that my foot has mostly healed, I can spin on her again because it's been a while and she's just been collecting dust in my room. So spinning is happening, albeit slowly. So I think that's pretty much it. I think that's all the fiber updates I have. The only other update I have is that I bought a guitar. I bought a guitar, and I'm teaching myself to play the guitar for fun because I monetize all my goddamn hobbies. So I learned how to play an E minor chord. Ready? That sounds like music. That's the only one. Wait, no, I can play a G. I can play a G chord. Ready? That's pretty good, right? I've had this for about a week. I still have to name it, but she's a Yamaha JR1. I have teeny tiny baby hands, and previously I was afraid to teach myself how to play a string instrument because I was afraid I didn't have enough reach, but the only instrument I play is piano, and I think that's probably more important on the piano than it is on the neck of a guitar, because you can finagle a lot of things here. You can't really do that on the piano. Like, if you can't reach that full octave, then you can't reach the full octave. That's just how it goes. So I've been having more success with the guitar than the piano. I'm attempting to teach myself to play Zombie by the Cranberries, which is one of my favorite songs. Oh, ready? This is the one that's hard. The C chord is hard. Ready? Oh, no. There we go. That's better. Ready? 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 And then ready? D. O. O. Are we gonna have 4 for 4? I hope so. This one's the hardest. 4 for 4. I'm getting better already. I'm excited. I just wanted to show that off because it's not often I get to talk about my non-fiber hobbies on here. So I'm excited. I have a new hobby, and I desperately needed a hobby that was an auditory stim that wasn't video games because my eyes are starting to rot out of my head. So I'm very excited to learn more about the guitar. I love music, but I am mortified to sing in public. So the fact that I don't know any instruments kind of leaves karaoke as my only option. But if I know how to play an instrument, I don't have to sing for myself to be heard, and that's kind of cool. That's something I've been working on in therapy for a while, so I'm pleased to have figured it out. Shout out to Guitar Center for having cheap junker guitars on sale a week ago, because formerly I couldn't afford a guitar, but the guy at the store helped me find this sucker, and she's beautiful and did not cost me that much money at all. At all. So I'm very pleased, and I'm excited to learn more about her. So that's all I've got for now. If you want more of this, I'm hoping to be a little bit more regular now that people aren't dying left and right. But like this video if you enjoyed it, give me a follow, give me a comment if you got anything. Your reach really does actually make a difference for my business. So the more reach that I'm able to get online, the more people know about my work, the more likely it is that I'm going to be able to keep doing this. So show some love. Also, happy Pride! Happy Pride! How did I not lead with that? If you haven't guessed, we're super queer around here. So I'm gonna bounce now. This has been almost an hour long, but I'm really glad we got to sit down and have this update. It's been too long. I'm hoping to have some more updates on Snicklefritz next time. Maybe a finished sample. We'll see. We'll see how long it takes me to knit that second sleeve. It took me about a day to knit the first one, but now that I've done it once, my brain's gonna go, no, all done. We'll see how that goes. So I'll see you next time. Hang in there. Take care. Mwah.